5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What's up, guys? This is Joev14, and I am here with
Mesonak from the TheThreeVirtues podcast.
And Eljay from a similar place.
A similar place.
Similar. You've said that before. And we have a special guest here today.
I'm Varkanax, or Varks, from Custom Bionicle Wiki, and also on BZP.
I think I'm going to call you Varks, because I have a friend called Var, and he's ironically a member of our podcast as well.
Uh-huh.
We should call you Sparky.
There's already a Sparky, LJ.
Not here.
One Sparky limit.
Not here.
Yes, one.
Dang.
The other Sparky does have an exclamation point at the end of his name, so... Ironically, he was an admin on the Exoforce Wiki, as well as the winner of the Kiri contest.
Really?
Yeah. Do you remember
who contest?
The custom how TLG sometimes hosts contests, and there was one for an Agori named Kiri.
Ooh, Sparkytron. Yeah, I know him.
Ironically, he was also an admin on the Exoforce Wiki long before he won that contest, and I probably about a year ago put 2 and 2 together and said, hey, that's the same guy.
That's great.
Yeah. He was quite a fan of Exoforce, but unfortunately sold all of his sets in order to help pay for his college.
Aw. That's a shame.
So now I guess I can say I'm the only person who owns every single set.
Do you?
I think.
Really?
I own every single set except for the Euroforce miniature polybag sets. But
That's interesting.
those are kind of hard to come by now.
They don't count.
No, they don't.
All right, well. As fun as,
I even
as,
have
fun as
some
it is,
of
just chatting. Cut to the chase.
All right. Okay, for our first segment, we are going to be doing a book spotlight by our guest, who wrote a fantastic book quite a while back and has been recently revised, or maybe not recently. He's been revising them, and I read his first book a while back, started a little bit of the second, and that's actually how I got him to come to this episode. That's how we met. And so, let's just jump into it. Do you want to explain a little bit about what the series is, a little bit of what it's about, and such, and then Meso and I can give our thoughts.
All right, sure. Well, the Xaterex Multiverse storyline, or XMS, as it's referred to, is it's a pretty lengthy series of 7 Bionicle novels that I wrote back in 2011 through 2013. I finished the last one in 2012, but I started a prequel series in 2013. It follows the journeys of 3 major protagonists along with a bunch of side characters, and it's a long and pretty complicated story, but basically it follows the journeys of one Toa Shardak as he begins fairly humbly on the sort of like a hero's journey type story, but he quickly gets catapulted into something much grimmer, and he ends up in rebellion against the Ix. It sounds like the sound of grasshoppers chirping, Ix, but you'll learn to fear it after a while.
Ix.
The Ix, yeah. They're the main villains of the series, and it follows Shardak and 2 other protagonists over the course of along the 3 years, I believe, as their various stories intertwine against the backdrop of a looming war.
Interesting.
Now, the way you just described that sounds like it was right out of the book. You described that so
I know,
well.
right?
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. The other 2 main characters are Blast and is it Silence or Arcturus?
Neither one. Farron and Valkyria.
That's right. Yeah, he comes in like right at the end of the first book. Sorry, spoilers.
Wow, just wow. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, most people know.
Most people are not
just
me.
by glancing. Most people know the protagonists who have read or heard of the series know the protagonists. So I don't think it needs to be spoiled.
All right. I was actually joking, but Mesonak, thoughts?
I was actually pretty impressed by this. Now, of course, I've only read 4 chapters, so I can't really. My review will be fairly limited because I can only go off your writing style and the introductions for everything. But I was definitely pretty impressed by what I read. You did a good job of hooking my interest, and since I only read such a minimal few chapters, that's an important, thing to begin with. Your writing style, I actually quite enjoy what you've got going as far as a setup goes. The characters seem like they have quite a good bit of potential. And here's what I'm going to do. I was only able to read 4 chapters before this recording, but immediately after it's over, I'm going to get back to it. Because, yeah, very, very interested to see where that goes.
Thank you.
You did a very good job from what I read. Now, I don't really read much fan fiction normally, so my abilities to critique it are fairly limited. But
yeah, well, it's important to point out that the Xaterex storyline is very alternate universe. It could fit as its own universe. It really has tenuous links to Bionicle canon in general. I mean, there are Glatorian, there are Igori, there are Matoran, Toa, and that's about it. That's where the similarities end.
Well,
you have to get pretty far to see the difference, but yeah.
That is, in my opinion, a good thing, because if you're setting out to make a large and complex mythos like it seems like you're doing or have done, it's important to give yourself as much freedom as possible.
It's hard to do that when you have the actual Bionicle canon you have to be checking and making sure you're not conflicting with it.
Unless you just set it so extremely in the future that all the rules have shifted and, you have more possibilities.
Yeah. Now, I do have one question. Is Silence the character is he the same character as the Dark Hunter from the actual series, or is it just
Silence?
His name is Silencer as a character in the series, and he's not the same character. There are no crossover characters in the Xaterex storyline from
None whatsoever?
None whatsoever.
All right.
But what if I wanted to see Tahu? You've taken away Tahu. How could you?
Yeah. Tahu.
And Lewa.
He's got enough books already. Lewa. He's got enough books already.
What about Lua? What about him?
Lua.
I can't say Lua. I have to say Lewa. Okay. He's not involved.
I was just about to ask. It's been a long-running source of controversy.
It doesn't matter.
It does, though.
It matters.
Lewa is the best pronunciation.
Well,
yes.
Yeah.
I remember when I used to pronounce it that way. When I first found out about it, I pronounced it Lewa, and I cannot tell you how many noobs told me I was wrong, and at the time I was a noob as well, so I changed my pronunciation. And then about 2 years ago, I heard, I think it was like some episode with Greg reading off one of the stories they wrote, and it said Lewa, and I was like, I had it right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was so annoyed with all the people who were correcting me.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, bottom line, there are no canon crossover characters in the Xaterex storyline. It's very self-contained. It has a pretty complicated mythos, but the way it drops you in the middle. So I I don't think you don't need any knowledge of the backstory to begin with.
Yeah.
The backstory is revealed as the story goes along.
That's a good way to go, in my opinion.
There are a couple of things that I have to say, and I'll try my best not to have spoilers.
Please.
But there are a few things in the story that are kind of obvious. That I can't remember who it was from the Epic Critics Club.
It was either Velox, is it, or Holly? It was one of the two.
I think it was Holly. That pointed out there were a few things that you kind of made a little too obvious, and for some people that's what their goal is. But I honestly prefer, and this kind of moves us into our next topic, which I'll bring up in a second. Ace Attorney is one of my favorite video games, probably so far, thanks to Meso letting me know about it. And I personally prefer stories that have a more mysterious surrounding, and I can actually kind of figure out as I go, because it draws me in more when I have some stuff to think about to see if I'm actually right later on. And if it's kind of just put right down in front of me and it's super obvious, it doesn't make it quite as exciting.
Yeah, I want to say something right now, but it would be spoil. It's
okay, you know what?
I'm
muting you guys. Say what you want.
No, I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna say a spoiler on the podcast.
Spoiler alert.
Actually,
okay, say what you want.
I want people to actually read the. I want people to actually read the books.
You don't.
So I just want to say that the revelations from the original, they're nothing. They're, for the most part, they're intentionally obvious. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
You have to read all seven before you got the full picture. There's a lot of twists in there.
All right.
Yeah.
I have one more thing to say. A while back, formatted and edited this book and put it into a book format in such a way that it could be printed. So anyone who's listening that knows about this, I actually mentioned this earlier to Varks, and I had the impression that people would be coming to me asking for copies of this, which I can print for, depending on whether you want I originally was going to offer a hardcover, but it'd be very hard to produce a hardcover, so I think I'm going to go with paperback books, anywhere between $9 and $10 for the printing, and then whatever it costs to ship it to you. I will ship out copies of this book because I think it's amazing, and I went to work editing it, and I'm hoping that people will actually want copies of this.
Interesting.
I've been meaning to actually purchase one of those for a while, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, all the books actually. If I remember, you wanted to do that at one point for all of them, except some of them are really long.
Yeah, I remember. I think it's like the 5th book in the series is like 3 times. The first book's the shortest, right?
It's much shorter than all the others, yes.
I still can't wrap my mind around that, because that book alone is roughly about a third the length of all the books I've ever written in my lifetime combined.
It's 40,000 words. The first one.
I think it's actually 60,000, and you said the final book is somewhere around 180,000 or something like that.
Yeah,
it blows my mind. In size 0.8 font, it still takes up around 300 pages, I think.
It's 300, and on a PDF document it's 370 something.
And how long did this take you to write?
I did it for 2 years, so from 2011 till 2013.
I mean just the final book.
No, the entire series.
But the final book, how long did that take you to write?
6 months, from December of 2012 until June or early July of 2012.
So basically, you wrote about a 300-page novel in 6 months.
Yeah. I was really obsessed, and that was the story I wanted to tell for the longest time.
That's a lot even for me, because I think it was August of last year I really got into writing, and I just wrote constantly, and I wrote around 44,000 words or something, like 40 or 50,000 words in about a month, and I've never written that much ever. And you wrote like 6 times that in 6 months. I'll just say this: you're dedicated to your writing, and
most people call me insane
Most.
when it comes to writing.
until you make $1 million off writing a novel that sells to the whole world.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Most are
It's
not us.
very flattering.
We are not those to pass judgment and on people's mental states. You see.
Well, I suppose I'm on a Bionicle podcast right now at 9:50 at night. So I suppose yeah.
Just say this is a Bionicle podcast would really be inaccurate.
Okay,
Anyway, yeah,
so
moving on.
you guys can talk about this after, because this is Infinite Inspiration Incorporated.
We're stealing your spotlight.
Yeah. Anyway, if you guys want, I can link you to the stories page on the wiki I originally wrote it on, and you can find all the novels on there. Currently, I've only posted about just the first one and a few pages of the second one, which needed revision at the time. But the full 6 main novels plus the 1 short story, so 7 total. I can link you to right now if you want.
I'll put a link in the description of this episode once I post it, and you can go ahead and give a link afterwards.
Just did sent it to you.
All right, that works too.
All right, yeah. Those are the outdated ones. I'm posting the current edited versions on BZP. There are no changes to the content. They're just grammatical and formatting
All right.
issues. Yeah.
So, about people who call you insane, that's not true at all. And the only person that I could truly call insane is Eljay. With that, we will move into our second segment.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
and I am insane, but thank you.
Thank you indeed.
Eljay isn't even here, is he? Because he should have remarked about that. Are you there at all, Eljay?
Well,
What? No, I'm here. What am I supposed to remark about?
you've been called insane. What are your thoughts?
I don't know. I'm not really in any sort of mental institution
Yeah, I
at
know,
the
right?
moment, so I don't know the validity of this remark.
Well, perhaps you've just been
It was an intro to the
diagnosed
second
until
segment.
now. Yes.
I'm not insane. If I was, why would they put me in a nice white room with all these nurses to cater to my every whim?
Yeah, exactly. That's like the service of a millionaire.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm not insane.
Wow, I never really thought about that. Insane people get as much luxury as like millionaires, except for they're insane,
Yes,
so they can't
they
really
can't enjoy it.
take it.
Exactly.
Enjoy it.
Exactly.
That was so off topic. All right, for our second segment, we are going to talk about something that's interesting that we talked about last episode that I'd like to add a little bit to. It's called Ace Attorney. It's a fantastic mystery video game that's available, unfortunately, only on Nintendo systems. Now, personally, I have no problem with this, but most people tend to lean more towards the PlayStation and the Xbox, so this may be a little bit of a...
Depends on what kind of
Okay, I
game.
feel better. I feel better now that I've never heard of this.
You've never heard of Ace Attorney?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
I'm really quite surprised. I had heard about Ace Attorney before Meso really got me into it. However, at the time, I don't know, just the name makes me think of something that's not exactly fun, like more along the lines of an educational game, just because it has the word attorney in it, and everyone thinks anything to do with lawyers is no fun at all. But I quite am. I'm totally enjoying this thing. It's great.
Lawyers are awesome.
I know, right?
So I read up on the game a little, and correct me if I'm wrong. It's about it's based on the Japanese legal system,
Yes.
and you have to prove people not guilty.
Yes.
Or is it guilty?
Not guilty.
It depends on which games you're playing.
Yeah, there's like
Okay.
a spin-off series where you play as the prosecutor.
The majority of the games are played from the
Attorney, yeah.
Like I was saying, the first 4 games are based around this. Actually, the first 3 are centered around a character named Phoenix Wright. The 4th game is focused around his apprentice, Apollo Justice, which I have not played yet. And then there's a spin-off series called Miles Edgeworth, which is Phoenix Wright and Apollo Justice's...
No.
rival?
No.
Is he?
He's not even an
do they
Apollo
ever-
Justice.
That's a
They
shame,
cut out
'cause
they cut
he's-
out 90% of the characters in Apollo Justice.
That is really a shame.
It is a shame.
And that's why you said you weren't sure if you liked Apollo Justice.
Yes, they introduced a bunch of new characters that aren't nearly as.
What I find
Gripping.
interesting is that in Dual Destinies, they have a blend of these characters, and a lot of the characters come back.
Yep. That's why
From
that
what I
game's
have
gonna be
heard,
so good.
I am very interested in this as to whether or not you play as both Apollo Justice and Phoenix
I'll
Strike.
save you the question. You do.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Do you ever play as Miles Edgeworth?
Don't believe so, but could be. There's gonna be.
Is it called Dual Destinies because you're playing as the two
Yes.
characters? All right. Is it from both of their viewpoints?
Yes.
And is each trial from a different viewpoint, or do you go back and forth
Joev.
for each? All right.
It's mixed.
So
Some cases you play as Phoenix, some cases you play as Apollo. You could play as Edgeworth, and they just haven't announced it because there's going to be like 10 cases, longest game ever. And
Wow.
you
Yeah.
also play as one of the new
10
characters.
cases.
Yes,
Is it that girl?
yes, that girl,
Okay.
Athena Sykes. Carry on.
Uh huh. What I find cool is that it's coming out in Japan this Thursday, I believe.
I don't find that cool at all. It just means spoilers will be more prevalent.
I suppose, but I just want to see. I don't really mind spoilers if it's just from like the first case because those are always super simple. But I just want to get an idea of what the game's gonna be like because personally, I am very excited about the game itself. However, I'm not excited about the way they have it set up. I don't really like the 3D graphics. I've always liked the idea of having it in a comic fashion with the manga and stuff. The idea of turning it to 3D just it doesn't look right to me.
I was initially skeptical until I saw some of the character animations and how true they've stayed to their sprited origins that kind of won me over, seeing how it's been interpreted.
I am sad to say that the game will not be coming out in the northern United States, North America. My mind was just blanking there. Not until probably January or February of 2014, which is a long time to
I think
wait.
that's
because I
an
want to purchase this.
overestimation. I've heard like October or November.
Are you sure?
Yeah, it's not definite, but
You-
I've heard
you would
late
think
this
they would
year,
have-
not early next.
You would think they'd have it release dates by now if it was coming out that soon.
I guess that's true.
Usually they get a release date within the first 3 months of 3 months it actually comes out, somewhere around that. I would very highly recommend this game. If it means having to go buy a DS Classic, those things are like $30, go do it because it's so worth the game because you can get the first game and a DS Classic or even a DS Lite for as low as $50 and it is easily worth it for that game because it is fantastic.
But you can't play Dual Destinies if you get a classic, you fool.
I think it'll be a little while before he gets his hands on a 3DS. He has to get sucked in first, and then he can go sell his DS Classic.
But why
add
would
some
you
money to the
go
mix
through the
and buy
trouble? I've never met someone that has played Ace Attorney and didn't like it. It's just a matter
know.
of getting the ability to play it, and when you play it, you're sucked in.
Precisely.
I'll just
it
buy
also
a
depends
cheap.
on interest.
I'll just buy a cheap 3DS off my cousin. He sells them pretty cheaply.
A 3DS?
Yes. If I need one to play
Yeah.
Dual Destinies.
That is the final game in the series, and there are 5 that precede it. So,
I guess I have time. Then.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's no
And I would
time.
recommend waiting a while for a 3DS because the prices on those are going down at the moment. And I managed to get my hands on one for just over 100. And I'm guessing by the time you play through the first 5 games, it might be as low as maybe 90. It took me quite a while to find one for 100. Most others were going between 120 to 140. So that is
Alright.
slightly off topic. But I just have to say I've been playing Justice for All, which is the second game in the series. I actually finished Miles Edgeworth because the guy who was supposed to ship me Justice for All did not ship it for 5 days, and then it took another 5 days for the shipping. And I had a screw up with the first time I tried to order it 3 weeks ago. So I've been waiting quite a while for this game, and I got sick of waiting and decided to play Miles Edgeworth. There were not barely any spoilers, nothing enough to
Yeah.
actually wreck the game. There were a few Easter eggs in there that revealed a few things, but it's not anything that you don't find out towards the beginning of the game anyways. So I'm very disappointed in how long it took me to get Justice for All, and to add to that, Justice for All is quite good. However, I'm finding a few things are disappointing me. Hey, Jeyo.
Oh, hello.
I noticed you started 30 minutes early.
Yes, because we have another guest who unfortunately will be having to leave probably in a while, so we had to start early to get him into the episode. Varks meet Jeyo, Jeyo meet Varks.
Hi.
Parks.
So I'm finding that Justice for All is certainly more difficult than the first game. The first game I had to look up a walkthrough once to find the answer to something towards the end of the final case, and I literally spent an hour trying to figure out what the thing was, and finally I gave up and looked at the walkthrough on the final part of the first game, but I am finding that I'm having to do this a little bit more often. I actually had to look up one thing for the first case, which is funny because it's an introductory case and you'd think it'd be very easy, but it wasn't quite as easy as I expected.
Yeah.
I'm also not sure quite what I think of the psychic lock. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Cyclops.
I'm not sure I like that. It's
It's nothing.
not my kind of
It's
thing.
nothing more than another thing they felt they had to add for gameplay, and it doesn't really show its usefulness till later on. It makes for some interesting dramatic moments.
It just seems to me like it's more of the same thing that happens in court, except for if you
Pretty much.
mess it up, you lose the health bar. What do you call that thing?
I don't know.
In the first game, there were exclamation points, and you had 5 of them, and it was always the same amount of loss, and it could only be done in court. But now in the second game, it's different. Instead of there are 10 spots on the bar in the courtroom, you lose two areas of the bar. So essentially, it lasts 5 mistakes. But when you're not doing it, if you're doing the Cyclock, then it takes 10, I think. And then somehow it replenishes it, because when you find out interesting information about somebody, it easily, for some reason, makes you feel better or something. I don't know.
For some reason.
Somehow it replenishes it somehow. And I'm not quite sure I like that, because if I mess it up over and over and over, and I don't manage to replenish it before the court case, I have, like, no mistakes allowed. And it does not replenish during the court case, so the only way to replenish it is when you find out stuff from the Cyclock, which I'm not sure I quite like. And I keep accidentally hitting the B button when I mean to go switch between the profiles and the evidence, and I have to start all over again, and it's driving me absolutely crazy, because I'm like towards the end, and then I accidentally, instead of switching between the evidence and the profiles, I go back, I stop, and I have to start all over again.
Yeah.
It's kind of annoying me. So yeah. I'm also interested as to why there are only 4 cases. Every other game has 5, with one being a special one that is only available on the DS. The Wii version of it does not have the final case, except for in the second game it has all 4 cases. So the second game only has 4 cases, and I'm wondering whether or not this reduces gameplay, or if the last 2 are really long. Because
The last one is insanely long.
All right, because the first 2 did not take me hardly any time at all. And by insanely long, do you mean like longer than Rise from the Ashes?
About the same length, if not maybe a little bit shorter. Keep in mind something about Rise from the Ashes. It was not in the original game. It was the equivalent to, something added in later to make it feel more meaty of a game. So if you're actually judging the games, the first one started off with a certain amount of content, and Justice for All has a little bit more gameplay because of the last case. And then the third game is just, wow, everything's fantastic, etc., etc. Rise from the Ashes throws
Is the third game
scale.
ridiculously long?
I wouldn't say it's long. It's about the same length, but it is probably slightly longer and better overall. Justice for All is
What
the
about
weakest game in the series. Apollo Justices are on the same lines.
Okay.
Justice for
I
All,
was
in my
very
opinion,
impressed
is
by
the weakest
Investigation.
game in the series. And yes, Investigations was pretty great.
However, it's shorter.
Yes.
I noticed Investigations is a little bit on the shorter side. However, it is fantastic. I love the prosecutor's viewpoint. I like the idea of not always being in the court because it feels very confining. Like the only way you can progress in the game is by finding out some little error in someone's testimony, and it gets a little overwhelming when you keep messing it up. So,
Yeah.